Where familiar territories meet, we go Mahou ah Mahou, pitting magical girl shows head to head to have a heart-to-heart about their genre content and our heartfelt opinions.
My name is Grant.
And I'm Brantley. Heads up, spoilers on the way. Check the description, see if you're safe to listen. Grant, I hope you've got hand wraps at the ready.
Yeah, because that's just something I carry on me all the time.
No, I was going to say because we're doing a lot of punching down. This is going to be a rough one, I think. Not for us, for the subject of discussion. We're going to be... I guess technically you can say we're comparing. It's inevitable, but, you know, we're going to be reviewing Puella, Magi, Madoka Magica, the movie, Rebellion, and Magia Record, Puella, Magi, Madoka Magica, side story, final season.
Dude, if you did not know what we were talking about, what you just said was complete nonsense.
I'm casting a hex on you. I'm cursing you right now. Okay, so...
Relevant.
Yeah, we're deep into this, so, like, you know, if Madoka Magica is not a series you're familiar with, then you probably want to start with our other episodes. This is not me shilling, it's just that you'll have no context. These is, you know, entirely sequels upon sequels, right? So,
And Madoka has some deep fucking lore to it, and it uses a lot of terminology that's weird sometimes. So, like, if you don't know what Madoka is, you might not even be able to really understand everything that's going on.
So here's the watch order. First, you have to go watch Rick and Morty, and then that will make your brain go super big. Okay.
Because you got to be smart, and that will get. And then you got to watch South Park because you got to understand deep satire.
Exactly.
Because those are the only two shows that ever used smart jokes and satire. There's no other shows out there that have better writing quality. You got to only watch those two.
Next, you get a girlfriend. You treat her right. That's it. That's actually where it ends.
All right.
Okay. So, joking aside, I do want to sort of, you know, set things up for us a little bit. Like this is going to be like, you know, we're gonna compare these things, but they're not exactly on the same ground. For example, Rebellion is a movie, like, you know, budget and all to compensate for that. Magia Record Season 3 is what we're gonna call it, but in reality, it's the last 4 episodes that should have been at the end of Season 2. Season 2 got clipped down to 8 episodes, and due to, from what I kind of assumed, like, production issues or, you know, some kind of delay, right? That got separated and aired in another season. And so when we say Season 3, we really mean the last 4 episodes of Season 2, but, you know, for the purposes of cataloging, it's a separate thing now. In that sense, they're actually close to the same, like, runtime. Like, Rebellion is about a half hour longer. It's a, like, nearly 2-hour long movie. You know, but all the same, right? These are not set up with the same sort of production values and goals. You know, that being said, because they're, you know, sort of the current standing endpoints of 2 Madoka Magica branches, I think it'll be interesting to sort of see, you know, what each of them have done in relationship to each other. So that's why we're bothering, basically. I also just want to give a little bit of trivia, maybe just as a little bit of pity for Magia Record Season 3, because we might not have much pity left once we actually start reviewing. So here's some stats. The original series, Puella, Magi, Madoka Magica, on my anime list, and as of the time we're recording here, has 679,553 user reviews. The movie sequel, Rebellion, which we'll be reviewing today, has, like, a little less than a third of that amount. That's 201,727 user reviews. So, you know, even with, like, Madoka being a very, like, well-received, like, critically acclaimed series, you're naturally going to get a drop-off in sort of attention and whatnot. when you have like a time break, right? Magia Record season 1 had 48,000 ish user reviews, which is less than 10% of the original Madoka fan base from My Anime List. Season 2 has like 13,000 ish, which is about 2% of the original fan base. And season 3 has less than 1% of the original fan base at about 6,000 user reviews. That's like, less than half of season 2. So I think it's worth noting that like time has a factor here, in reception and in feelings on things, and just even people's willingness to get into it. Because like ostensibly season 3 was supposed to be the end of season 2, and yet like half the people didn't even bother to go check out the next one. They didn't bother finishing,
or at least review it.
And we've seen this before with like big shows have this too. Like My Hero Academia, from what I understand, is still very popular, but like it's more than a 50% drop off in My Anime List user reviews from season 4 to season 5. And Wonder Egg Priority had the same issue. It didn't necessarily finish at 12 episodes. It needed to do a 13th special to kind of try to wrap things up. And like it kept less than a fourth of its audience for that. Granted, it had months between, the end of the series and the special. And on top of that, it got bad blood about, the quality of the special pretty quickly. So that has an effect. But still, just I wanted to note that. For no other reason if not just to say like it's rough making anime. Okay. So now let's get down and dirty with it. Let's talk about Rebellion first.
I love Rebellion. No shock there. Madoka is probably one of my favorite properties ever created by man. And I think Rebellion is a good extension of the original series without nullifying what the first series meant. So that's my initial gut reaction. We can go deeper, but what's your gut feeling?
Pretty similar. Like I'm just gonna say up front. I think Grant is gonna have a lot more to say on Rebellion than I do. And vice versa. I might have a little more to say about Magia Record. But overview feelings of Rebellion. I think it's very, very good. If we had to put it to numbers, I'd still rank it extremely high. It kind of flickers between like 9 and 10 depending on the day. I also think it kind of unnecessarily complicates things, not unlike Magia Record, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily worse for it. It's just less my style as a result.
Yeah, there is like a 7-minute info dump in Rebellion where Kyobe's, and like the same thing happens in Madoka where they finally decide to ask Kyuubi what the hell is going on. And it's much better in Madoka, but in Rebellion it's a little it's long and kind of drawn out because it kind of wants to tell people who haven't seen the original series what's going on, which makes it unnecessarily long.
Yeah, I think sometimes I feel almost like you could split Rebellion down into like OVA episodes and it would function like just about the same. Like there's almost distinct points like every 20 minutes or every half hour where you can just like sort of snip it apart and it's still like it feels like it has like almost like episode climaxes. Like there's quite a few times where you think the movie's ending and it turns out it's not done yet. And those are like about 20 to 30 minutes apart, which I think is interesting, right? But
and you're not wrong. And when we go over like kind of what happens in Rebellion, we can kind of be like, and this would be a good spot for it to end if it was an OVA.
Right.
So I think I'm going to give a quick synopsis, but instead of it going to be typically like me rushing through it, I think it's going to be a good time to kind of point out what I think is really well done from a film theory kind of sense.
Okay. Yep.
So the it starts out with this sort of montage of Mami, Kyoko, Sayaka, and Madoka fighting what looks like to be a witch familiar, or a witch, based on what we know. There's no dialogue, there's just music playing with all the normal effects that you see from Madoka. So it's a really interesting way to kind of throw off what you're expecting from the movie. Everybody's alive. Kyoko is fighting with Sayaka, Madoka, and Mami, which didn't happen in the original show. And it's a really, really fun. It's really cool, and the effects are great. There's big ass explosions blowing up buildings. It is just straight up throws you into something that you don't know what is going on, and I think that's kind of like the thematic creation of this show, is that they want you to go into this movie knowing how Madoka is as a series and still not understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I think they do that a really good job, because then it opens up again. After that scene, we get basically a 1-for-1 shot of the first episode's like 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. The dialogue is different. And it's a little, it kind of suggests some things that are going on that are a little bit stranger. I find it fun. When I first watched it, I watched it like on some sketchy anime site. Mm-hmm. And I was watching with one of my friends, and we kept looking at each other wondering, did we accidentally watch the first episode again?
Yeah. I think this is where it benefits from like the being a movie, right? Like, because you sit down, you're like, oh, I can't believe we're getting a sequel, and then this is happening, right? And you're like immersed in this paranoia. And if you're in a theater, like, you don't really have the light source to like be able to, look to someone next to you and be like, what is going on? You're just like, you're drenched in darkness, and you're being given, what seems to be the exact same thing you've seen before, but not quite. It's some, Haruhi Endless 8 kind of, feeling to it. But right. In a more profound kind of way.
And so we get that, and then Homura shows up again, except she has her braids in her hair. And also Kyoko is in their class, which is also something that didn't happen in the original series. The teacher's still nuts, but instead of being like, I can't believe that my boyfriend wanted to get mad at me by the way I fried an egg, it's her talking about the end of the world and the doom and gloom. And it's weird. But fine, I suppose. That's like the only scene that she exists in the entire show. So it's not like it matters too much. But Homura shows her little magical girl ring to indicate that she's a magical girl. Kyoko, Sayaka, Madoka, and Homura, and Mami are all magical girls. And Hitomi, the green-haired Maguka, who's not actually a magical girl, is dating Kyosuke, who is still not relevant. I don't think he has a single line.
Yeah, I feel like I heard his voice at one point in the movie, but I don't know if it was like for a grunt or like just like a affirmatory, like it's not, or no. Let's see. Well, she gets the call. I don't think his voice comes through on that, does it?
Yeah, no, it does. Okay. It does. But like
that's about it.
It's funny. They introduced some side characters that you kind of felt were important in the first one, and then immediately just toss them away, and you're like, that's fine. I don't give a shit. So in this new world, they're fighting what they call nightmares, which are the negative manifestation of people's emotions, just like the witches, just like the wraiths. But they don't explain nightmares, and so at the end of Madoka, you are under the impression that they're fighting wraiths, but these aren't wraiths, these are nightmares. So there's another layer of this kind of weird shit going on. And also Mami has the witch Bebe with her, the one that killed her, just like walking around. And they don't really explain it at first. They explain it later, but not in a way that's like interesting. Like it's such a casual I'm saying like a lot. I'm trying not to, but I have a lot to say.
Don't worry about it.
But they just kind of
they
put. Yeah, no, I do. They kind of put this creature that you have a hatred towards or a negative feeling because she killed Mami in the first series. Why is she here? What's her purpose? And so Hitomi has negative emotions because Kyosuke is a bad boyfriend, and her nightmare manifests, and it's very witchy. It covers the whole city, and so they do a very long transformation scene, and it's really cool. I think all the transformations are really, really good, and if we want, we can talk about the thematic understanding of each one.
How about do a lightning round of your favorite things you noticed out of those transformations?
Yeah, so like you have Mami, whose whole entire thing is that she like emerges from herself, which is reference to the fact that when she became a magical girl to prevent herself from dying, so she gave rebirth to herself as a new person, and she kind of breaks out like a butterfly. Yeah. You have Sayaka, who like runs head first into her silhouette of herself, and it's like this liquidy water drip effect. She also breakdances. That I don't think that has anything to do with anything. She just does. Yeah. Kyoko has this whole illusion thing going on, which might be a reference to what like the manga powers she has or whatever. Hers is just her like ripping through the facade of life, and she has a scary face. Homura's has this repeating theme where it looks like a tape rewinding at times. And then Madoka's is like really glitchy. It's like it doesn't seem, and like they're all weird, so it's not something that like you would pick up on, or even if it has any actual meaning. But as it glitches, it keeps separating Madoka into multiple versions of herself, which represents like the different universes that Homura has timelines that Homura has ended so that Madoka can save. It's just really good, and it could be nothing. It could just be stylistic choices, but I think it's really neat how detailed they do them. It's dope. They fight Hitomi's nightmare. They beat it. They do a really weird ritual to kill it, which is the cake song. And there's also some weird thematic understanding. Like that's the thing about this show. If we went frame by frame, we could analyze every single scene and see where it is, and it would be a much longer episode.
It's a movie rife for interpretation if you're into that kind of thing,
Yeah. And so the cake song, they sing it. It's really weird, and they stop the nightmare from manifesting, and Hitomi is fine, and everyone gets magic power back, so they don't fall in despair. And so you see this world as a good end, I suppose, to what Madoka Magica is. There's no competing for grief seeds. Everyone gets their magic back. No one dies to create the negative emotions. And it's perfect. And then after that happens, we get sort of a kind of breakdown of Homura. She doesn't understand what's going on. So like right there is where you could end an OVA episode. A cliffhanger into this weird world that you're unaware of. But then after that, we have Homura goes to meet with Kyoko, and she's weirded out by this world. She doesn't understand what it is. She thinks everything's a little strange.
It's the really high chairs. That's definitely it. Just the high chairs. That's all.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
So after, as this stuff happens, the world starts to get weirder. So like you'll start to notice people don't have faces unless they're main characters. And so Homura mentions to Kyoko that things are weird, and she goes to Kyoko because Kyoko is the weirdest to her. And she asks Kyoko, "Don't you feel strange? You are different than I remember you." And Kyoko's like, "Yeah, you're kind of different too." So they ask where Kyoko's from, and they do probably one of the best dream sequences because it's so frustrating. That scene frustrates me so much. They get on a bus to go to Kyoko's old hometown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're trying to head to Kazumino.
And as they do, it's a blank void that looks like a Sonic the Hedgehog bonus level. And every time they go to Kazumino, they divert and go back to Mitsukihara. Mm-hmm. And Kyoko's wondering what's going on, and Homura talks to her, and she says, "Hey, I'll figure it out." And then Homura says, "We're in a witch's labyrinth," which also doesn't make sense because witches aren't supposed to exist. Mm-hmm. And Homura realizes that Bebe is a witch, so I need to go beat the shit out of her. So right there, she goes to see Mommy's house. She goes to Mommy's house with Madoka to have tea, and she asks Mommy to go get her more tea. And it's really neat because in this scene, if you look real close, there's a little ribbon as Mommy leaves, as she attaches to Homura's ankle, which we saw earlier, that as long as Mommy is connected by ribbons, she's not affected by the time stop. And so Homura time stops and then beats the shit out of Bebe, and Mommy stops her and proceeds to have a very intense fight. It's dope as hell. It's so good. It's very Equilibrium, gun kata style. They're shooting each other's bullets to create a scenario where they don't get shot once the time starts, and there's this intense part where they are like standing still because they like calculated where all the bullets are gonna stop, and then it's so over the top, and it's nothing like we've seen in any of the other any of the other fight scenes have been like this, but it's great. I love it. And so
should I joy kill that part of the movie now or later?
You can joy kill it now.
Okay, I'm gonna try to make this quick. Apologies out to our anime gifts. I know this is gonna wound you. I think this fight's like the low part of the movie. Which like is to say the movie overall is very good. But I think this is the least interesting part of all of this. This is also gonna sound overly picky. I promise it will, but I feel like that's because the movie has warranted that being picky and looking for things like the ribbon that Grant mentioned is something they're trying to reward you for. So here's some things I think are weird about this fight. Number one, the choreography is really hard to track. I think back to like the fight between Kyoko and Sayaka from the original series, and like, essentially they're constrained in a tight space in that alleyway, and they, have to be sort of conscientious of their spacing to each other and how they're using their attacks. I don't really get that sense here. It feels like it's some like Michael Bay Transformers energy where there's long stretches where I can tell that characters are moving and they're shooting and like, they're in midair, but I don't know how they're like in relation to each other. Or even if they're like aiming well per se, right? It's just like you get bullet clangs, and that's about it. Like they could be anywhere, right? They're just kind of being thrown into cool poses, and you trust that because of the cinematic language of what's going on, they're not going to get shot. They're in like a threatless sort of lockdown, which like sure, that is what's happening. It's to show the competency of both characters, but it's a lot of nothing for a little while. It goes fast enough that most people will not be bothered by this, but I do. I am bothered by it. Additionally, I think there's some like I don't know, just weird decisions in what they decide to do with it. Like, and by the way, I know all of this is like building up to like the camera zooming out and you see essentially the bullet pattern art that's created out of it before time resumes, and that is really cool. But I think they could have done so in less screen time, or at least made the interactions between the two of them more interesting. There's parts where like you'll just be looking at shots of like backgrounds in the far distance, and there's just explosions happening in the camera's viewpoint. And they're just like meaningless to each other, right? It's just like, look, the bullets are clashing, and it's like, I get it. It'll shoot the camera over to like some like wall of debris and just show a bunch of bullets get splattered into it. It's like, all right, let's move on. And yes, I'm being picky because this is like maybe like 10-20 seconds of like a fight, right? But additionally, there's some weird decisions when they get down to the dueling parts of it. Like the part that I know everybody loves, where they're basically locked into a duel. They keep trying to go for headshots. I don't know why, because both of them understand soul gems, and they understand.
Mommy does not.
Okay.
Mommy does not know about soul gems. She, remember in the first series, Mommy only learned about it when in the one timeline where she killed Kyoko, and then went to kill Homura, and then Madoka killed Mommy. That's the only time that Mommy ever learned about soul gems. That's why when Homura goes to shoot herself in the head at the end of it, she tries to stop her.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't understand that that's how it's going to work.
I just figured that's because Mommy had a bleeding heart over it. But then also that was like a clone of her, so like that was a fake out too.
Yeah.
I rescind that. Homer is aiming for the head because that's where Mommy's soul gem is. Mommy is aiming for the head because she doesn't know. But like still, I feel like if they're really locked in like that, just go for a body shot and then go for the head. Like it feels weird that they'd keep aiming for something that they're consistently missing. But whatever. I also it's weird to me that Mommy keeps trying to manually aim and fire when throughout the fight before she's just been spawning arrays of guns and just having them auto fire herself. Like Homer doesn't have that liberty, but Mommy can definitely just summon a bunch of guns and then just like crossfire them into Homura. I guess you could say that, she's reserving magic, but we've also not seen how grief seeds and magic consumption works in this version, and so that's...
Well, we do know that using your soul gem in this version does taint your soul gem, and unless you kill a nightmare, you don't get it back.
Yeah.
So we have seen how they have to refresh it. So killing Homura will not refresh her soul gem.
But it's weird to me if they're going for kills, why she doesn't just pin her down and just like... If Homura's going to stand still, just put a bunch of guns around her and just pow. I don't know. It's not cool.
Well, after the
why.
Fight... after the fight, Mommy also says that she wanted to know why Homura wanted to kill Bebe.
Yeah, that aiming for the head didn't convince me of that. But...
to me, it's the in the middle of the fight, or I mean, the entire thing is that Mommy was even sort of toying with her anyway by not using her actual body.
Yeah.
Right, and so it was kind of maybe she assumed that Homura was going to win. Or she had the idea that there was nothing that Homura could do in this scenario that would cause her to actually win the fight, right? So, she might have been aiming for her head, but it's Homura, right?
Yeah.
She stops it.
The amount of like character acting that Mommy is pulling off for all of this, only to then like pull the clone trick at the end with her ribbons, feels like a yes, Mommy's competent and clearly she was like prepared to fight Homura from the moment she planted the ribbon, but again, this seems like a lot of work and a lot of like plot twisting, which to me just kind of throws me out of it a little bit. It's a just one more thing kind of fight Yeah, okay. And that's the end of my lightning round of whining. We're done. We don't have to talk about it anymore.
I see what you're saying. I disagree a lot.
Yeah. This is
also mommy can't do her big gun attacks because they will stop time. They will be stopped in time. She has to be close to them or they don't fire. The bullet comes out and then gets stopped by time, right? Because it is no longer connected to the person that is firing the gun. So if mommy summoned a bunch of guns, only a couple of them that were close to her would fire.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay. I'll take that. And no, I'm not going to edit this out to make myself look better. But I say I just honestly I don't get that fight scene. It's emotionally I have no stake in it. And that's perfectly okay. I'm okay with being wrong.
I get it. I love it. But then Sayaka throws a fire extinguisher, which is funny, because she did that. This is the third time she's done the fire extinguisher thing, and she sweeps away Homura, and right there you have the end of your next OVA, right? You do the Kyoko build up into the mommy fight into being saved by Sayaka, and so Homura talks to Sayaka about what the hell's going on. And she says, Sayaka, you're not supposed to be here. You shouldn't know about witches. And I do like the scene where Homura tries to stop time and Sayaka stabs her sword into her little shield. I think that part's sick.
In my opinion, that's like one of the best parts of the movie, comparatively.
It's so good. That entire scene is really good. It really, I think Rebellion did Sayaka's character so much justice. There's so much competency from her that we didn't get to see in the original one, but it feels earned. And she talks about how, because Homura is like, we're in a witch's labyrinth, and Sayaka asks, is it really so bad? We're not trying to die. Whatever witch is keeping us in here is trying to make us happy. And then she asks Homura, and if there is a witch, what are you going to do? What's wrong with being a witch? Are they really bad? They're just us. And then it reveals that like Sayaka still has access to her witch form, and she is still essentially the final evolution of a magical girl. And so you kind of get this feeling that there is something going on. Sayaka knows about it, but she doesn't know about it too much. And that scene's really good. And at this point you're kind of in this weird guessing who the witch is. When we were watching it with one of our friends who was watching this series for the first time, and he kept sending me like, oh, it's a fake witch created by Cube to see what's going on. Oh, it's Madoka's witch. It's the final witch. And I just kept saying, yep, And so you find out that the entire purpose after the scene, Homura kind of goes into a I guess meditative like thinking state. She keeps trying to figure it out. Also at the end of the mommy fight, mommy meets another magical girl who we've never seen before, who turns out to be Bebe's magical girl form and not her witch form. It's fine. And so Homura goes to ask Kyubey what the hell's going on, and Kyubey starts talking, and because he hasn't talked at all this entire show, and he says that he has Homura trapped inside of an isolation chamber. This is after Homura calls Kyoko and asks her. She says, "I'm gonna test something," and she puts her soul gem on a pedestal and drives away from it. And she knows that if you're far away from your soul gem, you'll lose connection to your body. And she doesn't. So then she shoots up her soul gem, realizing it's fake. and that she herself is the witch. And so Kyuubi tells her that he has put her in an isolation chamber to prevent the law of cycles from stealing her soul gem away before she turns into a witch. And he did this because at the end of the original series, Homura told Kyuubi what a witch was, which was a bad idea in hindsight. So since the isolation chamber prevented Madoka from pulling Homura into magical girl heaven through the law of cycles, he's going to see what a witch is. And it is better it's more energy efficient than what they were doing with the wraiths, which is bad, but also thematically accurate. So he originally did this so that he controlled the law of cycles with Madoka, but Homura allows herself to turn fully into a witch, and the plan is to have the witch self kill herself so that Madoka, Sayaka, and Mami, Kyoko, and Nagisa, who is Bebe's witch, to leave. So Sayaka, Nagisa, and Madoka are all part of the Law of Cycles. They were brought here to save Homura from witchiness, and that didn't happen, and they got stuck inside the isolation chamber. And so a giant fight ensues. It's pretty neat. The scene where Homura is turning into a witch, where it's very in her mind, with her and Madoka sitting on a chair. Madoka falls over, splashes into pink goo, and then Homura smashes herself with her fist and starts crying, and there's giant chairs and there's giant Homuras. The entire scene is really, really cool. So Madoka, Sayaka, Nagisa, and Kyoko all decide that instead of letting Homura kill herself, they're going to save her. And they do. And a pretty fun fight scene. You get a really nice Kyoko Sayaka moment where they're holding hands and talking about how Kyoko had a dream that Sayaka never existed, and how that was like the worst thing she could have thought of. It's very gay. In a good way. It's sort of the confirmation that people have been waiting for. And so they stop Homura from they stop Homura from killing herself as a witch, and then Madoka goes in to bring Homura into the Law of Cycles, and Homura separates her from her god form, taking her place as the person of the Law of Cycles, but in doing so, she kind of creates this very unstable reality in which her wish is going against Madoka's wish, which doesn't work well. So it ends with Sayaka talking to Homura about how she basically created a universe that might not work, and Homura doesn't give a shit. She's just like, I just want Madoka to be happy. So the universe design doesn't change too much, but Homura considers herself the new god, or the demon, as she calls herself. And Madoka gets a quick glimpse of what she used to be, and that's the end of the movie.
Which, depending on who you are, is either a very, very interesting way to end things, or is an absolute sour note. I think for both of us, we very much appreciate what it does.
I think it's a good, because Madoka as itself could have ended the way it could have ended, and you would have been fine. Mm-hmm. The only way for Madoka to continue and be, in my opinion, still emotionally relevant is to end in something like this. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty neat, because there's the whole part where Kyuubi's asking Homura, like, about how she's able to do this despite her despair being so great. And she talks about how despair is a really strong emotion, but the strongest human emotion is love, which sounds really cheesy, and it is. But to an alien being that is Kyuubi, it's a pretty good, like, representation of what humans will do for love. Mm-hmm. And that would be rewrite the universe to save your girlfriend.
It's also an uncomfortable sort of transformation of what the word love is supposed to mean, right? Because it's more complicated than
almost
just
feels
like I have positive feelings about this person. what ends up happening.
It's almost obsession.
Which like I don't want to short sell it as just that, because I know, like, I feel like that's what some people will latch onto, is like, oh, she's just so, it's, you know, it sucks because Homer is just so clingy and she won't let Madoka do her own thing, that this is what happened. And I feel like that's part of it, right? But
yeah, well,
I also think that it's revealed more in how she talks to Madoka at the end of the movie, and that she, you know, appreciates who Madoka is and isn't, and therefore will stick with her even if they oppose each other. Right? That, like, that at the core, she loves Madoka, including the things that, you know, they match up on, and the things they don't. And that, like, opposing her doesn't mean she stops loving her.
Right. And one of the things I like to point out to people that think that it's sort of this obsession that is, like, negative
shit.
She does create a universe in which she can't interact with Madoka as much as she wants to, right? She does it because she wants Madoka to be happy. And if that creates a world where she doesn't get to be with Madoka, that's okay with Homura. She wants Madoka to be happy with or without her. And I think that's an important distinction. She's not trying to sacrifice the entire world so she can be with Madoka. She is trying to create a world in which Madoka can be happy even if she's not there. And I think that makes it a little less tropey.
She's taking control and also releasing some control, which, you know, again,
it's a genuine expression. It might not be the best idea, but it's still a genuine expression.
It's a messy, sort of selfish and selfless action.
Right.
Yeah, and so I think it's important to keep both, as opposed to just reducing it down to one or the other, whichever you feel more strongly about.
So, do you have any final thoughts over the synopsis before we move into rebellion themes?
Not particularly. I think that, again, this is a dense movie. This is the kind of thing that
I crunched it down hard.
It's the kind of thing that, like, if it could take a couple rewatches to really, like, understand everything, or like a wiki dive. It's the kind of thing that is meant to be discussed, right? Like, like literally what happened within this episode, in which, you know, I'm missing things and we're rebuilding what I understand about the movie.
I've also seen this movie a shit ton.
Yeah. This is my second time I've seen it. The first time I saw it was a long time ago, in which I forgot most of the movie. But that being said, right, I suppose in the same theming, right, like, this is a movie that wants you to get engaged and to, like, talk about it, maybe, like, you know, get combative about it. I don't know. Its controversial nature, I think, stands in line with the final theme that they present to you. If you're a stickler for, like, for getting answers, I guess, then you might not be fully happy with this. Like, I know I spent some time afterwards just trying to search up, like, okay, if all this happened, then what are wraiths? And I still don't really have a clear answer on that.
Well, and we've never seen wraiths. Yeah. We've seen wraiths at one time at the end of the original series.
So if you walked into this thinking, like, finally, I'm going to see more linearly of what happened in the original series, you're going to be disappointed, because you will not get answers, because wraiths aren't here. So, like, you know, in that sense, you know, the movie might not be what people want. And I guess from what I understand, right, the sequel to the sequel movie might also not include wraith. I don't know. Would movie number 4, so to speak, include wraiths in it, do you think?
If it takes place in the universe that Homer created, then yes. Because at the end, Homer says, we still have the wraiths to take care of, and once they're all gone, maybe then you and I can fight, when she's talking to Sayaka. So from what I gathered, the universe that Homura created is the exact same universe that that Madoka created at the end of the first season, just with her in control instead of Madoka. And Homura still exists within the universe, but in a limited capacity. I think she made it so that the incubators take the despair, because she says we'll need someone to hold on to that despair. So I think the incubators do
Kiwi
that.
looks fucked up, to say the least.
Yeah.
So yeah, this movie has a very particular purpose, and that is to shock and transform you, not so much to just give you a straightforward sequel.
Yes.
Aside from that, I don't think I have any other I guess I can share my high points of the movie then. It's only fair considering that I didn't care much for everyone's favorite fight scene. So stuff that I like a whole lot. Number one, the trip to Kazumino is like the one thing that stuck in my brain after I originally watched the movie the first time.
Oh, it's so good.
Like I didn't even remember exactly why they were doing it, but the imagery of it was like impossible to shake out of my brain. Like it's the kind of thing that if you've seen other Shaft shows or productions, then like it's very much leaning into their stylistic takings on like repetitive scenery and like abstracting that stuff. Like it's the perfect opportunity for them to take that to its like fullest extent, at least that I've seen. I have not seen everything that Shaft has made for good reasons. But yeah, it is iconic. Additionally, like I already mentioned, the confrontation with Sayaka is also excellent. But like
incredible.
the way that she sticks her blade into Homer's shield to stop the gears is a really interesting way of interrupting that power. And I think it's well choreographed, but even more than that, doing the shot reverse shots on top of the blade is fucking inspired. Like, I know it's not the first time someone's put a camera on a sword, but like it works extremely well, especially considering like the mirror effect that sort of results there, right? And what that says. Oh look, they're literally reflecting on the situation. I enjoy that.
And Sayaka is literally putting a wrench in the gears of Homer's play.
Exactly. Like it's
like it's so on the nose, but only if you start thinking of it like it.
Yeah.
It's really good.
The flower bed meeting with Madoka, particularly because Homura's voice actress Chiwa Saito can do an incredible cry. I mean, like all of the Madoka voice actors do an excellent job shedding tears or acting as such, but like Chiwa Saito especially.
There's so much emotion in that scene. Like even Aoyuki,
who I also adore.
When she is yeah, I love Aoyuki. But when she's like comforting Homura and talking in her like really soft voice during that scene, it's incredible. Like that entire scene is just so emotional.
Yeah. It's the kind of stuff that gets me choked up. Like, as opposed to just like, oh, it's sad.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last scene of the movie, in which like the scene is cut in half. Like you have like a half moon, and like the world kind of comes to a drop off point, and Homura sort of like falls over the edge. I think that's really powerful too. I mean, it has the rule of cool imagery, but I think it also has the thematic implications that like Homura is sort of, Homura loves Madoka, who can no longer be in her heart, in like, the same way that she used to be. And so Madoka can't like complete Homura in a conventional way, right? And so therefore Homer is falling for her, but Madoka can't be there to catch her, and so she's falling into emptiness. I just maybe I'm extrapolating that too much, but I very much enjoy it, and it's powerful imagery either way. Yeah. Okay. I'm all out of stuff to say aside from thematic readings, so
Now let's talk about the themes. Capitalism will continue to find the best way to make profit, even if it's more exploitative.
Yep. You can't.
The entire. I mean, that's the entire purpose of the first one, right? But in this one, we even create a world in which we can still do the thing that the person wants to, and they want it to be done faster. So they want to make it worse for the workers.
Yep. This is for me, like, to put it very briefly, it's a movie about essentially a small step that is immediately like co-opted or like snuffed out by capitalism. There's important sayings and insights about how capitalism will be its own undoing, which is true, right? That it collapses on itself. But I think in part with that as well, the power structures of capitalism essentially make it very difficult for capitalism to be unwritten in the ways that we're used to governing and whatnot. Like essentially that like, hey, we had this victory, Madoka, revolutionizes the world and literally rewrote how things work. Like, hey, we got a win, everyone, we got the W, yay. And hooray, everyone's happy about that, except we're immediately going to stuff that, right, and make it seem like everything is better, right? Sayaka's like, hey, look, we're actually in a stable place, don't you want this? Like, this weird world, whatever it might be, perhaps we shouldn't be unsettled by it. Do you think maybe you just want to let this be? And that can't be enough because it's a facade, right? There's still an immense underpinning of like laborious torture and like social disempowerment that has them all gripped. But capitalism's really great at putting up that facade if the people in power are privy to that, which they are. Yes. I have a lot more to say on it, but I want to break to let you speak again.
No, that's essentially what I was gonna say. Yeah, fuck it. That's what I mean. I am much better at bouncing off your ideas than putting the words I have on paper into words, and I don't even have them on paper.
The good news is I do, because I can't come up for shit on the spot. So, okay, I'm just gonna keep garbling out things that I wrote down about this, and if anything strikes you, then just jump in. Because I have plenty. So, again, like I guess my reading of the story is that the oppressors want to isolate the oppressed to keep them from unionizing. So then you can teach a life of individualism and shield them from what could be, right? Block it out. There is no other world than this one. Here you are. Isn't this nice? You can do whatever you want. You have everything you could ever want, right? Don't think about what you could have. That doesn't exist. Just appreciate what you have here that we gave you. And that's, Homer being trapped. Like, literally, physically, magically trapped. Madoka, and her example of, like, hey, we can change this stuff, is being obscured by the facade. Even, like, in Homer's dream state, she's kind of reattributing what that means, right? What it means to be Madoka, and is sort of regressing it. I think a really powerful part of the movie is when Madoka is rebraiding Homer's hair. That's a really nice touch. It's essentially this pat on the back of like, good job, we did it. We've done a good thing for the world, and now that we've put all this work in, let's go home. Let's just go back to the way things were. which is not how things work. We move forward. We can't exist backwards. Um, and I guess that also then goes in line with Homura's like time powers, right? Like, all right, no more rewinding. What is Homura going to do to change things forward instead of just trying to go back and alter circumstances? Um, let's see. I haven't really mentioned this so far, but this movie really likes reminding you that it's a movie. Because there's like, you know, like decorations and arches and things that'll be like, welcome to the film. It is cinema, right? Like it's like it is putting that in your
Oh
face.
yeah, it straight up asks you. There's a part where Homer is running away before the talk with Madoka, where they're on a boat. And it was after the fight with mommy, and Homer shot herself in the head, so she's bleeding. And Madoka like finds her, and they jump on the boat, and they have this cute little moment where they like are trying to stay balanced, and they literally cross under a fucking arch that says, "Are you having fun?" Like, are you enjoying the film?
Exactly. Like, don't these are the fruits of your labor. Aren't you happy with it? Like, aren't you satisfied? Which no, they shouldn't be, and they aren't. Or at least that's what it evolves into. And so yeah, exactly. It's I feel like in some cases I might consider that lampshading, like in a more like negative light, like, oh, that's putting it on pretty heavily. But I feel like I'd only warrant that if the rest of the message isn't carrying through. If they did pull back and they didn't actually complete the statement of, aren't you enjoying the movie? If so, that's a little fucked up. It's critiquing itself as just a movie. It's like, look, we're sending you a message, but you watching this doesn't make you a better progressive, right? It doesn't. You aren't actually performing direct action by watching this movie. But you could. Maybe this will stir something.
Well, and it's also in universe makes sense for Homura's labyrinth to be asking that. Like, the entire purpose is that Homura's labyrinth is trying to keep her from looking for the truth. And so it's asking Homura, aren't you having fun? Isn't this what you wanted? Are you enjoying the movie?
Yeah, she's
and the answer is no, right? And I think that's
yeah,
swell.
it's her own reflections like surfacing. It's her own thoughts that are like that have to go to battle about, like, are you happy with this? Are you happy with just what Madoka has made for you? And she's not. She wants a part in it. And I think this movie is special for all of this, right? It's not only that we got, a step of the revolution, but it's faltering. And it's including all these really important elements of that, right? There's the complacency that sets in with bargaining. There's the historical erasure. There's, complacency and exhaustion. It all feels very relevant to today. And like we said, of course I love the cinema metaphor and like it as an illusion. Okay. On to the more controversial stuff with Homura's actions. I've already kind of talked about this a little bit, so I'm gonna lay out why I think it's ultimately a good part of the movie. Like, don't get me wrong, I think that you could cut the movie off like 20 minutes early and I would still be satisfied with that ending. But this is also a satisfying ending, and I think this one has more teeth. Particularly because it's not nice. It's I love the hopefulness of Madoka Original's first ending, but that's only part of it, right? There's hope and there's also fury that needs to be, in our fucking leftist throes of passion. So, what's literally happening is that Homura is preventing Madoka from becoming this another long-term problem, right? like Madoka's godhood is really good right here and now, right? Like it's a systemic change, and that's big. Grant and I literally sit on Discord like and just for like an hour we'll talk about all the systemic changes we wish we could see, healthcare, universal income and needs, etc. But like this is coming to terms with the fact that like a systemic change, even a well-intentioned one now, won't last. Like people will change, life will alter, things will evolve. And Madokami doing what Madokami does is not going to be good enough forever, even if it's really good right now. Which, like, as they've mentioned, they still have their rates to deal with, right? There's still problems that they ought to work towards, but that also includes not like cementing and reifying what Madokami is. That's dangerous. Because Madokami is just one person, right? She's one law in this big, mess of reality that they've sort of become aware of. And Madokami's not, invulnerable to being co-opted or undone or outdated. Whether it's the incubators or someone else, right? Like, I mean, we leave the original series thinking, oh, look, Madokami's a god. She fixed it, right? Like, she fucking, like, backwards long jumped to the most effective solution we could possibly have for this dire storyline. But, speaking more imaginatively, it's not like the incubators can't still interfere. Right? And, like, heck, even Homura, who didn't use a wish for this, just used her own amassed power to take Madokami back away from her own
well, but what's interesting about that, because a lot of people have problems with that. They're like, how could she do that? But Homura's wish was to be able to go back and protect Madoka, right? So technically, it is part of her wish. It's just sort of like a side grade to it, right?
It's a re-identification of like what it meant for Madoka to be protected. Because here's a place where she was in danger. If she wasn't in danger, if she was, like godliness in a totally impenetrable form, then that wouldn't have worked. But clearly, if it moves, it can be moved by, many things.
Well, and as you mentioned, that you said that like with Kyubey being able to control the law of cycles, what's preventing some other alien race to do it? Because Kyubey mentions that there's other races out there, and humans are still the only ones he's ever met that have the emotional capacity to do what they do. So it's not like there aren't other threats out there. And if Kyubey can do it, what about anyone else?
Exactly. Yeah. What if Kyubey coerces someone to make a bad wish? We pull like a fucking, I don't know, like Twisted Metal, and someone wishes for something that ends up bad because of how they worded it, right? Like classic, that classic scenario from mythology and whatnot, right? Like that can still be overrun. Like you could, ideally, if someone else amassed that kind of long-term power, which, as far as we've seen in Magia Record, people's powers end up, pretty similar to some extent when you have just enough magical girls. Maybe someone else finds a way to amass lots and lots of accumulated universal power, and then they make a wish that undoes Madoka. It seems senseless, but it can technically happen. And so we have to accept a universe in which, like, we don't just get to make one change and dust our hands off and be proud of it, right? Like, that legislative shift in the universe happened once, it can happen again. It can get better, it can get worse. And so Homura is essentially stepping up to the plate for that. She's giving everyone a reality check that, like, look, Madoka did this for us, but it can't be that way always. So we all have to get very comfortable very fast with the idea that we're going to uphold this based on time and circumstances. That if I disagree with Madoka, as much as I love her, I'm going to stand for what I believe in, and you all should too. And if you disagree with what I'm doing right now, then you should keep doing that. It's this embracing of discourse that I clearly already indulged so much in our Gotchaman crowds stuff. But yeah, I think that's interesting, right? I think it's one of those things that to me makes this feel not so much like a side grade to the original movie. It does make it feel like an upgrade. It feels like it's completing the sentence that the original series started.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree.
Also, just the fact that the incubators are doing bastardly quantitative science experiments at this
is very
macro scale is hilarious and terrifying. That shit's pretty real too. So yeah, okay, tangent. Can we just appreciate that the Cubays as this extremely powerful, oppressive and conscientiously sort of careless force of creatures are very small and cute, essentially. They're they're philanthropists, right? Look, we're actually, for the livestock that you're actually getting better lives out of this, etc., etc. Right? For all that philanthropizing, they sure do a lot to keep their images up, huh? Right? They don't really speak unless spoken to. They they happen to resemble very cute things in our universe. It's oh, look, Bill Gates, he's such a nice old man. Look, he's doing putting the money into the research to help the people. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't Bill Gates so nice? Just nice guy. What? How could you ever complain about Bill Gates? He's just a nice old man guy. I want his fucking money. No, that's for real. Again, just another piece of this puzzle that I think fits well. Okay, and that's all I have to say.
Rebellion's good. It is how you do a movie without ruining the meaning of the original one.
Does not disappoint.
Now let's talk about Magia Record.
It disappoints.
What? It's not good.
No. This is going to be apparent by the fact that we already didn't like where the second season was going. Which we reviewed it.
They weren't able to fix it in 4 episodes.
Yeah, so which is not a surprise at all, but we feel like we should still at least indulge us a little bit. So some precedent things we're going to establish before we get too far into this. No, we have not played the gacha game. I have seen some of it. Primarily I've seen the first chapter, and I've seen a few hours of chapter 10, or less than 2 hours of chapter 10, which according to the video I was watching spans about 4-ish hours. So no, we're not experts on the gacha game. Yes, we know the gacha game is very different, especially for season 3 here. So if you're really interested in the differences between the two, I found someone who's done a very good job of logging that. I'm gonna put the link in the description. So thank you to SilverMoon424 on Tumblr. Very, very helpful and very eye-opening as to the apparent fact that nobody liked how this turned out. And if you did, I understand, but we're probably just brace yourselves. So in order to walk through this, I honestly don't feel like going through a plot synopsis, because this, I'm gonna call it season 3. It's the end of season 2, but I'm gonna call it season 3. These 4 episodes are a mess. They cover a lot of ground, but in my opinion, they're stumbling all along the way. And frankly, I'll admit it. You've seen kind of earlier that like I don't always have all my facts straight when it comes to Madoka lore. So with that in mind, I didn't walk out of this feeling like I understood everything, and I'm not gonna like attempt to sell you that I do. So instead of like going through all of that, I think it's more important that we just assess sort of the highlights and the low points of what this season did. Do you feel like that's reasonable?
That's
okay.
Reasonable.
So let's start with what didn't work or what couldn't work. Grant, how do you feel? What do you think? Just like, stuff they tried and it didn't pan out, or like things they went for and it just would suck no matter how the execution was, like bad decisions in writing, etc. Like, what are your negative feelings on this season?
I think it's so the entire show about Magia Record is about 3 little girls trying to take Q-based power so that they can stop the world of suffering. It's very much like a classic Madoka thing. I think it's interesting that they do a whole kind of plot idea on the discussion that people have of Madoka and how to create a wish that allows them to kind of game the system.
Yeah, they're like theorizing.
And I think that's fun. I think the scenes where they're talking about what kind of wishes they want and how that it's interesting because to them it's like, how can we work with this system to make it better for everyone? Which is pretty decent as a themology. But there's so many characters and they spread out everyone's beliefs onto like little tiny things of bread. It's like everyone's beliefs and characters are butter, but there's 100 pieces of bread, so no one gets like a lot of butter. It's just mostly bread.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, the 3 girls that are trying to do it, here's their personality traits. They suck. And it's not fun to watch. You don't really root for them. And their demise isn't nearly as tragic. I find it...
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What kind of bread?
Bad bread.
Oh, that's my favorite kind of bread. Continue.
So it's interesting because there's the scene where I can't remember what her name is. The one with the umbrella.
Toka.
Yeah. So it's like you get a she like remembers everything and she's so happy to finally see Iroha again and everyone's excited, and then she immediately just is like, nah, I'm back to fighting people. I'm gonna go fight people again. And it's like they have these character arcs of how these characters learned and what they did, and they immediately just kind of revert back to doing whatever.
Mm-hmm. Here's a fun fact.
Mm-hmm.
In the game, that doesn't happen.
I know it doesn't happen in the game.
They give up.
They give up.
They give up on the plan. Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of little things like that feel kind of senseless in this season. And again, maybe it's because I'm missing things. Maybe because someone could explain it to me better. But I don't care to hear it. But like for real, there's these things that just feel like even if they have some kind of like factual or logical reasoning to exist in the show, I feel like emotionally they don't make a lot of sense, either in the pacing or in the characters' like decision making skills. Right, like the fact that Toka and Nemu would like continue resorting to their plan, the fact that their original ideals have somehow like warped into like these oversights of like, if we have all of this despair, then the hope that fights back against it will be much greater, or, like we'll get people to stand up for themselves, blah blah blah. It's kind of like that's pretty dire considering like lots of real people are being like wiped out in this like cataclysm. Not some of these plot decisions kind of go beyond emotional logic at the very least.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. It's it's like through all the logical ideals that most of these characters have, the way they act on them is so fucking out there. Like, the Wings of Magius have a terrible PR problem, and and at the same time, Yachio's like, I don't give a shit about the Wings of Magic. Like, I love Yachio, but she's like, I will fucking kill everyone for Iroha, and it's like, why? Talk, man. Just talk. For how much talking is done in the original series and Rebellion, where they just kind of explain their ideas and their thought process and their feelings. None of that happens in Magia Record. So it like when Mommy and Homura fight each other, like, there's at least a little moment where they're like, no, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. And then they fight, right? Mm-hmm. In Magia Record, they just ignore each other, right? They don't try and debate. They don't try and discuss. They just fight. And it's not good.
Hey, speaking with the pinnacle of what you're describing, how do you feel about Alina Gray?
She gets too much money. If she's a graphic designer, she is the worst kind of person in the world. Alina Gray sucks, and she doesn't make sense. It's like Alina Gray existed so that they could write a new antagonist when the other antagonist died. Mm-hmm. And they made her French, and that's not okay.
Yeah, like, she's irritating. I know she's, like, designed to be, but not in a fun way.
No, it's like LOL, I'm the Joker. Fuck off. God.
I'm the Joker for women.
Yeah, I don't give a shit about Alina Gray. She doesn't do anything. And what's worse about it is that the Magia Record universe still ends the same. Wabberschnacht comes, they sort of defeat it, a bunch of people die, and then they're like, magical girls will remain unhappy forever. That's literally how Magia Record ends. I know that's not how it ends in the game, and they basically say, hey, we're going to suffer for the greater good, and no one is going to know it except our little record that Madoka wrote. I hate it. I fucking don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get. And I know in the games that doesn't happen. I know in the games the story's still going, and I know, like, Madoka in the games is like, oh, I'm so glad that there's a universe where Homer and I can exist together without it being terrible. Like, Madokami says that. Mm-hmm. But also, that also sucks. Magia Record sucks. The games suck for different reasons than the TV show sucks, but they both suck. The games suck less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here's something that I think you'll appreciate from the game. At least I appreciate this a lot. Apparently in the game, the doppel system is not problematized nearly as much. So you know how in the anime it's like, oh, don't use your doppel too much, you'll get, like, addicted to it, or, like, there's kind of, like, this, like, heavy-handed sort of, like, pros and cons, like, almost like a quasi, like, drug allegory to the doppel system. Mm-hmm. That's not in the game. So, like, for anyone who has heard me talk about Magia Record before, and how I didn't like how the doppel system wasn't allowed to just be, like, this, you know, like, yeah, sort of kind of, like, moderate way of getting by through the Madoka system, but it's something, right? I guess in the game it's more like that, so I appreciate that. I like what the doppel system can represent in the form of, like, you know, essentially venting out your stresses and, like, coping in some kind of, like, you know, expressive way. And towards, like, you know, better health. Like, you know, I think that, you know, it also helps to substantiate that this is a different style of, you know, narrative than the original series, instead of just trying to resolve the original series problems in, like, Plan B fashion, right? Like, it's certainly not the revolutionary narrative that is systemically presented in the original series, but like if you want to make a Madoka series that has to drag out long and has to focus more on individual character stories, they've got to get by and they have to live longer. So like I think the Doppel system is a compromise for that, right? I think that works. And that's not here. That's a bummer. So I guess props to the game because they heard me on that. They definitely heard me on that. And it's not that they just had that intention in the first place. Jokes aside, something else that I think you might find funny. Apparently in the game, according to my secondary source, they formed the Kamihama Magia Union after like all the chaotic events of this first gigantic arc are done. So they actually they unionize. They do it,
which is good, which is cool.
Yeah.
I just think it's weird. Like to me, the game has a little bit more of its like ideas straight, but it also sucks because it kind of invalidates the original series, which is fine, right? Like because it's supposed to be separate.
Yeah.
But then they're like, "Oh, Madoka exists in this," and then I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, they have this weird hand wave of like, oh, for some reason Madoka can't interfere with this universe, which is why it kind of exists the way it is.
But it's interesting
but it's like,
because
why?
The way that they've done time travel in Madoka is that time is not a bunch of branching paths. Time is linear, and Homura keeps going back in time to try and stop it. Because when Kyubey talks about it, he's like, all these timelines keep ending and going back, right? So it's not like the timelines where she doesn't do things, it's not like they continue, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way that time in Madoka is like time in Back to the Future, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not branching timelines. There's one timeline and you can change it. But yeah, Magia Record's like, no, there's branching universes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's like I understand that, like, Magia Record is made to make money, and I like the Magical Girl Union. I think that's cute and fun and makes sense. But the TV show just ruins it, man.
Mm-hmm. And much like it is existing in a game form for the purpose of like capital, merchandising, profit, etc. All of its narrative is, going to be undermined as a result, right? Like, it's a story about compromise, and the way that the game monetizes and whatnot. Surely, like, that stands to reason that's in the same pool, etc., etc. So like I guess we a pat on the back and a firm scowl to the game for doing what we do and don't like, and the show missed out on a lot of those things and also confuses us, so yikes. Like this, like in the end you see Homer like disappear to like go back because things didn't turn out well like they do in the game. So again, like apparently, like in that case, does Homer just disappear from there and just like end up in a different branch line, or should everything be rewinding with her and they just don't show that? I don't know. And there's still so much more we actually have to talk about. Let's take a little break from that. And we should reassert production values have not moved much since season 2 took its break. This is not a case where like, they sort of resume things and hey, we can now put more into this. It's about the same quality level. This is not like an OVA series that, pump things up. It's the same but later. I feel like it's worth mentioning we did catch a shot where there's a train that's moving into the scene, and because of where the camera was placed, the train like clips through the camera, so you like there's some geometry that you don't see at first because you're on the inside of it, and the train moves forward and it sort of pops in, which like definitely threw me out of it, because I wasn't even looking for it. It just kind of happened. I think that was in either episode 1 or episode 2. If you're curious of like finding that, I don't mean that as like a way to beat the show down. I'm not necessarily of the opinion that like, oh, the art production is bad, let's laugh at it, right? Like, I think it's just more so an indicator that like this stuff's hard, this is rough. Like, Magia Record as a game text is fucking enormous. Here's something I can say against the game. They talk way too much. Like, way too much. And it's not necessarily a problem that the quantity is overwhelming. It's that no one says anything of use to a certain point. There's a lot of characters restating everything that's going on, which gets egregious in the final circumstances when everybody is there all at once and everyone has to say, yes, I'm here, let's do it, I'm in with the plan, we're going to initiate our attack now, all right, let's go, yay, yay, like, it's everyone has to say yay. And wow, it just goes and goes and goes. I was hoping to watch through all of chapter 10 so that I could, bring that information here, but I could not do it in time on our schedule, which says something, right?
We're very busy people.
Yeah, and also it was boring and I gave up. But like, but the reason, like, hopefully that should demonstrate, right? Like, at some point when they're deliberating, like, oh no, we tried to strap Eve down and it didn't work and Eve is crashing around again. Maybe this time we'll aim the ribbons at the joints of the wings. Like, why waste time on this? It's like, it's not even breaking these out into like new battles or anything as far as I can tell. Like, it's just literally the characters in visual novel format standing still, looking straight forward into the camera, occasionally doing like a unique animation where they kind of like, I don't know, shift their weight from one side to another or like put up their hands, but it's just that, and they're just explaining things that are happening. It is tell instead of show. And I get why the game production staff does that, but they really should have saved themselves some time and script. Like, the quality of enjoyment is, at least for me, was hurt because of that. As someone who has no stake in this, please don't take offense if you really enjoyed that last chapter and, like, it carried you all the way through. But, like, not for me. And, like, yeah, there's a lot of characters even in the anime. Like, they cut down a ton. They mostly keep it to characters who have been around before, but, like Kanagi shows up and she had like no anime presence and she has a lot of stake in the game, and so what she has in the anime when she does appear comparatively is like a fucking drop in the pond, right? Like, I don't even know if she was in the anime before season 3, but apparently she's super prominent in the game's like chapter 10 climax. So, like, in a way, I guess we should at least appreciate that they cut some people out because we needed it. Like, oh, also, because we've complained about this before, yes, the magical quintet were always there, like, even in the game. They were not just hammed in for appeal in the anime, they were always in the game as well. And like they like are a prominent part of the team. They are working with everybody. They still like are sticking mostly together as a group of 5, but like they interact with the rest of the Magia Record characters too. But that also means that yes, we have to retread ground with them. Like, we have to give Homura an internal monologue in the game about saving Madoka and like the state of the other members and like how that's going to weigh in with the Walpurgis crash, like that has to have time spent on it. And it did take out time from season 2, time which probably really could have been better spent on the characters we already know. Because for what the quintet ends up doing in the anime, it still feels pretty ancillary compared to, the rest of what the main cast is supposed to be doing. Like, it also doesn't help they start to blend together a little bit. Like, and again, I don't blame them, but acknowledging what's happening when they have to line up 10 different characters, you know, and give them all the same goal, basically, you start to see, like, yeah, this is not really... They're it's not good.
No, it's
not significant,
right.
You know, it's their personalities start to become indistinct from one another at a certain point. Like, yes, Felicia is like a firebrand, and Saruno is not. But when it's the end of the world, they kind of aren't that different from each other.
Yeah,
because all the dialogue boils down to let's do it, let's hit it. You know, like it's, you know, it's a necessary convergence of goals where the construction of the characters can't actually hold themselves apart. Not in a significant way. Apart from that, like, season 3 has a hard time fitting anybody in. Like, basically either you had your arc or you're getting a rushed climax. You know, that's about it. They have to spend a whole episode on Toka and Nemu and Ui. They have to spend a lot of time on Alina and the Wings of Magius, just kind of reacting to stuff, and like Eve, and just like the fundamental playing out of these events just has to be time consuming, right? Because it has to get done, and that means that I think the energy gets kind of like crushed. Oh, Kuroe also has to fit her like entire ending.
I forgot that she died.
Yeah, they murk her.
And not in like a fun way.
Yeah.
If you're gonna kill someone, it's gotta be cool. Write that down. You can't get arrested if you kill someone and it's cool.
So let's actually take a moment to talk about Kuroe, because like she's an anime original character, and I kind of hate the way that they dealt with her. So I'm gonna skip a little bit. Kuroe's suicidal ideation, and like when she asks basically to the camera, you know, when does it all stop? That feels Madoka appropriate. That feels like it belongs here a lot more than I think some of the other, like, you know, theoretical nonsense and you know, fictional strategizing that they do in this show. It feels like it's like, oh, we're back at home with Madoka, right? It feels like we're back in those like intense talks between Sayaka and Kyoko, sort of, you know. But Kuroe gets no TLC and no closure. She's just unceremoniously witched, and then Iroha knifes her, and then that just has to be motivation for Iroha. That's it. You know, it's just what it comes down to is, oh no, this happened to Kuroe. Also, Kuroe does have to die for this, but now I don't want this to happen to anybody else. Which, spoilers, that doesn't help anyways, because so many characters die this season. But yeah, it feels so empty, right? Like, Kuroe had been strung along for this entire show, like, with minimal detail of what she's doing here, and then we get it all exposited very quickly, and then she's dead. And not even with a good answer, right? Like, she poses some really interesting questions about all of this, and they just have to shrug and say, sorry, we're gonna have to kill you because you're, like, witching right now. And that's that.
I like the verb witching, character, by the way. Like,
yeah.
Man, you're gonna get witched.
I sound like a fucking Disney Channel original TV show.
Oh no! Welcome to the witching house, where we have to have 3 kids, and they're all wanting to be wizards, and only one of them gets to keep their magic powers. Just kidding. That's Wizardly Waverly Place. That's the plot of that.
They have to make some joke about like, why are you always witching at me? And then ha 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 laugh track or something like that.
You're being such a witch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just replaced bitch with witch.
Son of a witch. Ha ha ha.
Oh my god, I bet we're the first people to ever come up with that joke.
You think?
Continue talking about anime.
Okay. Yeah, anyways, none of her critical questions that she asks actually get answers to them. Which sucks, you know. But I guess it's in tune with the rest of this show because everything kind of just ends with a wet fart. All the plans that were set up by Wings of Magius kind of collapse. Eve gets destroyed, but in this weird chain reaction of people making like sacrificial killings, it's basically people taking turns of like, I'm going to sacrifice myself to destroy Eve. No, I'm going to sacrifice, and then Alina Gray is here, and like, well, now I have to sacrifice myself to kill you instead. It's fucking bonkers. And it just ends up with a lot of death. Like, it feels like all of these theoretical plans just end up melting. Like, where this ostensibly started was Nemu, Toka, and Ui coming up with their magic redistribution system, right? And instead of seeing that, like, commentated on very thoroughly, we just get to see, like, oh yeah, it didn't work. That sucked. Hey, what if we, like, caused which versus which nuclear warfare? Like, it feels like they give up on the redistribution plans so quickly. Maybe because then that would be fronting on other Madoka media, but like, it's worse for it, I think. Because the other plans that they resort to are clearly not as well thought through. It feels kind of a slap in the face. Hey, while Purgus is defeated, Eve is dealt with. We'll find our resolve, but all of it is this, like, hey, we got through it. We survived the hard times. Looks like we didn't have to unionize anyway. Like,
Right.
I guess we just didn't have to worry about that at all. Everybody just gives up on all the momentum that was there before. And, like, there's other characters that don't get their proper resolve either. Mitama, the coordinator, right? Like, she gets set up early and then kind of, like, gets stalled out for a while and then shows up strong here again because she's supposed to be, a critical character. From what I understand in the game, she's, like, the person who basically levels you up. She strengthens your soul gem.
And eats
so, like,
cheesecake with ketchup.
That is very true, yes. But, like, do you think they'd kick her out of the cake song?
Yeah, she'd be like, I am the ketchup, and everyone would be like, hold the fuck up.
Yeah,
what?
No!
And they're like, well, you added a fucking pumpkin to it. And they're like, yeah, but, like, that's metaphorical. You're adding ketchup. Why? And she's like, well, ketchup goes good on sweet things. And then the nightmare gets away because
Mommy is just, like, scooching her chair backwards.
I guess they added the cheese to it. That cake sucks. Melon. We need to add at least 6 times where Madoka says melon into this podcast somewhere.
Listen, I don't get paid to do that.
It
depends strictly on my mood.
I will give you $10.
No, you won't. I won't take it.
I will give you.
I don't want to do it.
I will.
Here's the thing. Mitama, as the coordinator, is supposed to have a bigger part in this. They're so busy trying to give everybody else their moment of camera time and to get them through their arc that she gets shirked, but has to show up at the end. So it's like, okay, here's her time. She's gonna heal everyone's soul gems. Maybe she'll die in the process, but like, they're ending this show here. So like, fine. That she feels like, if anybody, like a more reasonable character than anyone, considering they want to end this darker, right? If you want to end the show on a dark note, then yeah, thematically it makes sense to take out the character who had been strengthening and literally, like, uplifting everybody involved. But they don't. They shirk her of that. She doesn't get to make her big final, sacrifice. Instead, Momoko and Mifuyu are the ones who do it. Mifuyu I kind of get, because, like, she also has had all of this, like, bad faith that she's trying to, overwrite. But Momoko just like, oh, well, Momoko's one of the older girls, and, like, I guess we're kind of done with her, so like sure, let's have her sacrifice herself too. Neither of those characters died in the game. Nobody died in the game. But sure, you know, I honestly don't understand why they did that, aside from making Mitama suffer. Like it's just kind of like there's a whole lot of like, oh no, someone died for me, now I'll have to, you know, work stronger, harder, better because of it, but like the show ends anyways. Why didn't you just select the people with the most significant contributions to do that final fall? Okay. I should really wrap up my complaints here, because I think I'm gonna eventually start spinning in circles. I think I've mainly said everything. This Magia Record in general wants to get very, very technical, but personally, I'm not impressed with any of the solutions they're offering.
Yeah.
They feel underbaked. They're divided across so many characters that none of them get to really like stand out. Even limited down to just like the main five, say from season 1. Like, you know, like they didn't even fit Saruno in back then. They had to kick her climax into the end of season 2, squeeze it in before season 3 happens. It seems like the worst of all occurrences here, and potentially the worst of all decisions.
Yeah.
But hey, let's turn things around. What do you think could have worked here?
I think Magia Record could have worked if it was a video game within the Madoka Magica universe played by magical girls. That way, it didn't need to worry about trying to do anything. I don't think Magia Record works. I don't think the concept of Magia Record works. I think if you want to do something like Magia Record, you have to keep it in the same universe with the same ideas, but not make it nearly as world-ending, right? Make it take place in the Wraith universe, right? And make or make it take place in a pre-Madoka universe, and make the doppel system a thing that they're trying to work on, but maybe make the villain some veteran magical girls who are exploiting the magical girls for grief seeds, and they're not doing anything, right? Stay away from Walpurgisnacht. You don't need Walpurgisnacht does not need to be the crux of everything. She wasn't the crux in Rebellion, and that was great. I think them trying to create a society in which the Holy Magical Quintet are not the main driving factor is bound to fail, because it's going to invalidate something from the original series. However, if you make it more of a smaller, focused show, then I think maybe you can do something with that and still can maintain those themes without it totally usurping your original idea.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Like, I have also seen people talk about, like, oh, you know, the Walpurgis event, like that was something that was like this big raid thing where, you know, everyone got to contribute, basically. It was, you know, everyone
which is cool.
Which, yeah, it's cool. And then it's also extremely vulnerable to, like, the upscaling effect, right? Like, you have this world-ending event, how do you top that? Well, we just keep more of them. You know, it's not just Walpurgis, it's also Eve. You know, like, it's bound to burn itself out at some point. And so it's just kind of, it's distressing to have that in something that, you know, starts out more lightweight, starts out more positive, and, like, just, you know, generally lower stakes. I feel like it has to compete with Madoka Original because it goes there. Because they want to get that same high, right? Mm-hmm. We want you to not only be able to play Magia Record, but also have your Magical Quintet back, and we want you to be able to face Walpurgis, and all this stuff, right? So they are inevitably putting themselves in a corner, and I don't resent it, but, like, I do feel bad about it. It definitely, it gives them no way out. Eventually, they are going to, you know, falter under having to rewrite Madoka Original as not being Madoka Original with new technical rules and new characters in mass. Like, it's just, there's hardly a way where this works out. There are bits and pieces in there that I really like, you know, like there's some character interactions I think are fun. I think that, like, you know, walking away from this, there are characters that I appreciate. Yachio is nice. I like Yachio. You know, maybe she's just like, you know, Homura-esque, but like, sure, I'll take it. Like, you know, in those moments, I did enjoy myself. But wow, on the whole, it's very difficult to make these parts sort of create a better sum. Can't hold it against them, but, you know, maybe that says something about the structure of gacha games and the state of contemporary narrative that we feel the need to retread these things and to scope up so greatly. By the way, I know there are other, you know, magical, or like, you know, I know there are other Puella Magi, Madoka Magica, like, spin-offs, that are out there. Maybe those are more of, like, what we're describing. But I still think that we want to give our thoughts on this existing as it does right
Magia
now.
Record got the anime, and
yeah,
that means we need to talk about it.
Yeah, we talk about anime. We don't talk about manga or, you know, like little 3-minute net animations and whatever. Yeah. Okay. All of that being said, do you have any final thoughts on either of these properties?
Rebellion is how you make an anime movie. I fucking hate when anime movies suck and they're like a non-canonical spin-off and they have no importance to the rest of the show. Like, if you make like all the fucking Naruto movies, they're like, whoa, Naruto uses Super Saiyan Rasengan ×6. That's never been used before in the history of ninja kind. Whoa! And then it never comes up in the TV show. Demon Slayer is like, hey, season 2 is just a movie. That's fine. I'm okay with that. And Rebellion does the same thing. It's like, hey, we're going to make a movie. It's going to be canon, and it's going to be important. There we go. I think that's great.
Yeah. The Magia Record is not.
Yeah, Magia Record is how you don't make a spinoff. You make it so it invalidates your original series. You make it so that it is its, like, at some point you might as well just made a different thing.
Yeah, I wish they had more freedom or guts, whichever it is, to step away and say, you know what, we're not going to retread the same ground. We're going to just do our own thing. I have a strong feeling that was not an option, either because no one would get into it, or because, you know, they, you know, were mandated to do it, whatever, you know. Like, let's be honest, everybody got so extremely excited when the quintet showed up in season 2. I think in a way we've kind of asked for this. So, you know, part of this is on us as a collective fan base. But let it be a testament to what we've, you know, sort of manifested then. All right. To wrap things up, do you have any hypotheticals you'd like to suggest?
Yeah, I have a hypothetical.
Okay.
I don't. Like, I thought I did. I thought I could come up with something on the top of my head. I've done that a few times in this podcast. I'm like, yeah, I have one, and then I think of something right then and there. I did not do it this time. So
I was so sure you were gonna be like, 2 guys on the moon. One of them kills the other with a rock.
That's fucked up, right?
That's what's happening in the end of Rebellion.
Yeah,
in Half the Moon, there's 2 guys up there.
I have a hypothetical.
We just don't talk about them.
I have a hypothetical. Okay. All right, you love Neon Genesis Evangelion.
I mean that's your words, not mine.
If you had,
but yes, no.
If you had to make a spin-off gacha game of Ava, how would you make it as bad as Magia Record? It will get an
wow.
anime. It will get an anime.
It will get an anime. Okay.
And I'm not trying to think. You're not making a terrible game. You're making something that sells like hotcakes, like Magia Record. But what do you do with the story?
Well, the sad part is this has already kind of been done. Here's what you do. You take Shinji Ikari Raising Project, and you take Girlfriend of Steel. You just put them together and add a fuck ton more characters. And that's it.
You know what?
That's the formula.
You know what I would do?
Shinji Ikari is like you're like, you know, like essentially your stand-in player character, and you're just collecting a fucking like a harem of girls to put in mechs to slobber over, because apparently the Evangelion franchise at large loves to do that.
Perfect.
What were you gonna say?
I would say just make it, but you get different mechs instead of different characters. But I wouldn't sell any money. You're right. Different girls.
Ooh, you know what? Yeah, this time you get Ava Unit 1, but it's got like flames painted on it.
Hell yeah, dude. I don't know why that's not in the actual series.
Yeah. Hey, for any Evangelion fans out there, I hate you. What have you done?
Shut up.
We've brought this upon ourselves. You know what? Magia Record and Ava are just the same thing. We've done this to ourselves. Why did we let it become popular?
We should have
oppressed our own fan.
We needed to gatekeep everything. We needed to make sure that no one enjoyed it but us, and made fun of everyone that wanted to have fun.
Christ.
Because if everyone, if the thing is that if people are having fun, eventually the weirdos start coming in. So that's why you have to be absolutely toxic to everybody that tries to enjoy things you like.
I wish that were the case, and not the exact opposite, in which all the people who are gatekeeping are also the ones who haven't quit fighting over which teenage girl is the best one for Shinji to wife.
The answer is none of them. He sucks. Yep. Do you have any hypotheticals?
I do. Okay, so if you need, I've already kind of decided my answers on these, because they I think could be thinkers potentially. So if you want more time to think, just let me know, and I will give my answer.
I don't
first.
need time to think.
Just go.
Yep.
Go. We need to watch Sonic X sometime.
We do.
Another one on the list. Okay. You have to cram another Magia Record character into a primary role. Okay? And it has to be... Okay, here's the thing. It has to be somebody we have not seen yet. Or otherwise somebody who maybe showed up on screen, but we don't know their names.
Okay.
So here's the thing. I'm going to send you the wiki page.
Okay.
With all the characters.
Uh-huh.
All right, and you're going to have to pick one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who, essentially you're not really familiar with.
Yep.
So whatever gut reaction you have,
you're
going to have to use that to decide who's going to get
Cowboy Girl.
Cowboy Girl. Okay. Then.
Is her name Calamity Jane?
I don't remember.
Is that her name?
I'm not the right person to ask. You can check the link I just sent.
I know there's so many, but I don't remember which one's the cowboy.
Look for the cowboy hat.
No, surfing Sayaka.
Doesn't count Sayaka. Wait, are you saying that she's like different?
Yeah,
like,
it's a different.
It's like when you have like you have most Pikachu, but then you also have a Pikachu that learned surf.
Yeah,
she's just an entirely different person.
I gotta find her. I gotta find the cowboy girl. I'm obsessed with surfing Sayaka. It's so stupid. When did Sayaka doesn't surf?
Not yet.
You tell me yours while I look for Cowboy Girl.
It's gotta be Ashley Taylor, baby.
She's
the otaku. She's from California.
Oh yeah, dude, she's like a meme. People are, like, I think she was created because of the American like release.
I can only imagine that's why they'd create her. Like she is that analog. the way they would cram her in, I believe, is that she'd essentially be like sort of orbiting major plot events. She wouldn't be like hanging out with like the main group, but instead she'd be like recording them or like commentating on like things, like sort of as like a pseudo narrator or like a quasi narrator. And then like she would kind of pop in to ask like big overhanging questions in like a who's it, Jonathan Frakes kind of way. Yeah, that's what I would suggest. She has like a Jonathan Frakes sort of position in the story where she just kind of pops in and asks these like rudimentary questions about like, what do you think is going on and stuff like that. Like she's blogging her time in Japan or something.
All right, I have a couple answers because I did find Cowboy Girl.
Are you okay? Go for it.
So, I meet Erie, the cowboy, is definitely the one I would want. She has a gun. That's a plus.
Yeah.
I wish that they whoever her voice actress was would be American and would just talk in a Southern accent all the time.
Now is she like, so she's speaking American?
Yeah,
like English.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like she's
and she does not speak.
like
And she does not speak Japanese.
Okay.
So she's just like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. I don't even like. She has like nothing. No. She likes romance novels.
Good for her.
And that's it.
Do you think she'd be a fan of Chuck Tingle novels?
No, she's too young to read those, Brantley.
Yeah.
She would read like shitty teen love. But she would exist, and her role is that she is American. Now, the other one I have is I really like Mihona Sierra. Her weapon is a megaphone. I think that is good. And so what she would do is that she would use her megaphone to engage in discourse from a long distance with the Wings of Magius. And she would just shit talk them constantly, but they can't get close to her, and she can't hear them because she has a megaphone. I love her. She does not have an English translated trivia page or a description, so I have no idea what she does. And the other one I like is Ryu Midori, who is a girl with a DSLR camera, so like a really nice camera, and a bazooka.
What a combo.
She is the master of emotion. Continue to seek the truth. So she's a journalist.
Oh, so she's covered wars, Okay,
yeah, she's covered wars, and she has her doppel is a camera with arms and a lot of eyes.
Do you think they worked real hard on that one?
No, it looks really bad. I'm gonna send you a picture because it's really good. But I want her to. I want her to just constantly talk about the shit she's seen and show pictures, but I also want her to just be like an influencer. So like in the middle of it, she'll like put down a dietary milkshake, and she'll be like, I can only continue to do this because of how much Slim Shake I drink all day every day. Use my product code Bazooka at their website to get 10% off. Tell them Midori Ryu sent you. And in fact, in my Magia Record universe, none of the original characters would be there. It'd be Cowgirl, Bazooka Girl, and Megaphone Girl. Those would be the three main characters.
You could use that megaphone for a lot of good. You could use it to do influencer talk.
Yeah, and then you have Cowboy Girl with a gun. I also
she can make a big. You know how they do the team up attacks?
yeah.
Oh my god, we didn't even mention there's the part in Magia Record where they like do the team up things and they just get on a giant version of a weapon and like ride it like a rocket.
Oh yeah, it was cool when they did it in Symphogear, but it's not cool when they do it in Magia Record.
Yeah.
Also, I actually think that Aimee Aries' design is fun. It doesn't look like a magical girl, but compared to the other outfits that this show has,
Why not have a little fun?
What?
Why not get a little weird? You know,
Yeah,
get a little out there.
Have a cowboy girl. Isn't there like a really racially insensitive Native American character?
Just in the sense that like it's like in like a, as far as I know, kind of a like Street Fighter or like more so Punch Out kind of thing, where it's just like common like stereotypical characteristics of like, oh, the feather headdress and stuff. I don't know how her character is handled. I just can't imagine that it's handled well. Like, but then again, I have not read any of the texts, so
God, there's so many terrible designed characters in Magia Record. Just like, oh, these are Monogatari characters.
Yeah, there's some tie-in characters and stuff.
Yeah, I was like, that's Shinjo Gahara-san from the one
Bake
show.
Monogatari. Yep. It's wild sometimes when you see like these gacha games and you're like looking at like the character roster and it's like, oh, that's Nagisa from Futari wa Precure, that she's in just like this like random gacha game. Hi.
Oh, yeah, like, hold on. Yeah, Magical Girl Nanoha is in this game.
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, this game already has like a weird sort of like sexy thing going on with like a majority of the characters. Why not throw in lyrical Nanoha characters?
Yeah, it's just weird.
Christ.
Weird.
Yeah. Okay. We're not done yet.
Oh God.
We have one more hypothetical.
You're holding me hostage.
Sorry. Okay. Well.
No. Keep going. It's fine.
We'll try to wrap this up. So, okay. I want you, Grant, to point to the stands on this.
Okay.
I want you to try to make a prediction about movie 4. Because it's going to come out and we're going to review it, right? So, now's your chance. What do you think is going to happen in the follow-up movie to Rebellion?
Okay. So, the follow-up movie to Rebellion will start out with the girls fighting the Wraiths. Homura won't be a magical girl. It will still be Sayaka, Kyoko, Mami, Madoka. Homura will kind of be an observer. They will fight the Wraiths, and during it there will be like sort of a shattering universe effect for a little bit, and then Madoka will be fine. They'll try and keep going through the slice of life, and Madoka will slowly start getting flashbacks to her original godhood, and Homura will try and put a stop to it in various kind of like escalating fashions. In doing so, like it will start off kind of like small, like, hey, we're gonna go to the arcade today. You want to have fun? Yeah. And then eventually it's like a lot more like malicious, because Homura is like losing this reality. So Madoka will eventually return to godhood, and Homura, like she said in the end of Rebellion, will have to fight Madoka. During this time, there's going to be a incubator takeover where they're going to try and trap both versions of the Law of the Cycles to truly end it, to bring back the witch. Homura and Madoka will kiss, which will result in them combining their powers to end the incubators forever. But they both will be removed from the universe, and they will live out in God space together. But everyone will forget who they are and what they've done. And then it will end with Yachio coming to their universe with a gun and being like, same shit, different day.
Okay. I don't have full plot predictions. I'm just gonna sort of give some like bingo squares, basically. I think Mommy is gonna get murked somehow, because like she always gets like the short end of that. Like usually she ends up losing some kind of fight or dying or whatever. I feel like that's gonna happen again. Like it's like a Sayaka fire extinguisher thing. It just kind of repeats. I also do think Homura will kiss Madoka, but I think it's gonna be forced on her, which is gonna cause her to freak out. And that's gonna instigate like the major breaking point in the movie. Like someone's gonna like fly in and attack Homura at that point or something like that. I certainly hope that it doesn't get randomly homophobic, but like. I don't know. I have this weird gut feeling that they're gonna pull something like that as like a major, like, like shock because they know fans would want it. Yeah. And that's that. I think we've talked enough about all this shit. So, any closing thoughts?
Nope. I think I have talked enough about Madoka for the rest of my life.
Not enough. You gotta pull it in again when the next movie comes out.
Until the fourth. We'll never get it. It's not gonna happen. It's gone. No, I'm excited. I really hope it's good. I hope it doesn't suck. I'm afraid after watching Magia Record that it might suck.
Yeah, I worry too that they're gonna swing it way too dark. And just like
because the thing is that you need the hope for Madoka to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see.
Yep. Until then, what's up next for us?
That's a good question.
We're kind of at a turning point. We're in the middle of a few different shows. So some things we've been watching include Healer Girl, which we've been enjoying so far. That's been like a nice little surprise for us. Let's see. We still have the
Yuki Yuna.
Yuki Yuna is still there. Oh God, I forgot about that. We have the
Revue Starlight movie, but
Starlight movie.
We haven't found a way to watch it.
I might have something.
All right.
Yuriku no Arashi is another one that we could finish out at some point. Keep the Ikuhara train rolling. We got a lot of options, so maybe next one's gonna be a surprise.
It's gonna be a surprise. Sorry for the delay on recording this episode. We are in a terrible, terrible, hard to do world, and sometimes it's hard to sit down and play video games and watch anime.
Feel bad for us.
Yeah, no, it's not a problem with us. I'm in between. I'm getting a new job and doing training, and I had to move. So like I've been really busy, and I know that Brantley, you've had to do some other stuff with your job. It's a lot of since we don't get paid to do this, it means we can't like actually like carve out a ton of time for it. But we still enjoy it. So if you like what you listen to, check us out on Twitch. We do that pretty consistently since it's just like 2 hours a week playing video games. We just finished
Mondays at 7 for that.
Yeah, Mondays at 7. Sometimes we'll sporadically do random shit, but Mondays at 7 is consistent. We just finished Ebe. We might move on to some. We're gonna continue doing Coffee Talk. So that will be pretty cool. You can follow us on Twitter, where I lament about Guilty Gear. You can subscribe here, comment, let us know what you think about Magia Record. If you like it, good for you. I think that's okay. And
also you're our strongest soldiers out there for hanging with it.
Absolutely. You don't need to do any of that though, because we are not your dads.